Welcome back, beer tubers. Ryan here, back to another episode of San Diego Beer Blog. Thanks for joining me. We'll be taking a look at another beer from Epic Brewing out of Utah, and this is their Fermentation Without Representation Imperial Pumpkin Ale, which they collaborated with DC Brau out in Washington, D.C. So this is a big 8% Imperial Porter. It's part of the Exponential series. They say it's a porter brewed with pumpkin and spices. So let's get this thing open. I've tried a few pumpkin porters. The brewery makes one called Burley Gourd, and well, I guess it's not a porter, but a treat from Midnight Sun. That's an imperial stout, basically pumpkin ale. So I kind of have a decent idea of, you know, some beers that are kind of in this style. So I'll be looking forward to see what these two breweries do. Pours out a pretty dark brown. I'm getting some like mahogany tinges towards the bottom of the glass. It's certainly not, you know, completely opaque. This is a nice dark brown. I got about a finger of a tan head on there. Seems to be some decent carbonation coming up. Let's get the aroma. I get mostly malt character. The spices are pretty subdued on the nose. You get a little bit of touch of that cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice character, but not a lot. There's some breadiness in there, touch of coffee notes. Not the most potent aroma on this beer, but let's dig and see how it tastes. Cheers. Yeah, it's not, the spices aren't overwhelming on the palate either. It's a nice beer though, 8%. Hides the alcohol really well. Really smooth drinking beer. First thing I noticed, it has a really creamy mouthfeel. It's only a medium bodied beer though, which is nice. It's not overly thick. So up front you get a little bit of bitterness. I don't know if that's coming from the darker malts or maybe part of the spices coming into play. But that's hit first, then big sweetness comes. Big sweet chocolate. More of like a bittersweet chocolate character to it. The spices kind of follow towards the end. They're not overly prominent. You don't get a ton of cinnamon or nutmeg characteristics. Those are what I'm getting the most in this one. There's a bit of a gourd characteristic in there, maybe a bit of tannins coming from that out of the mash. And you get a touch of that gourd characteristic in the flavor. But mostly the pumpkin characteristic is probably just attributing mouthfeel to the beer. And then at the very end I get like a touch of like a smoky roastiness to the beer as well. The lingering flavors tend to be a little bit of chocolate with some of the spices. Drinking on it some more, I tend to get more of a darker fruit character to the beer. There's some raisins in there, that kind of plum characteristic. These darker fruits come into play. They work well with the chocolate notes and the pumpkin character. The alcohol is becoming a little bit more prominent as I drink it, but it's something that you just taste a little bit on the back end and feel it somewhat. So overall, I think this one's actually kind of just pretty average. It's almost above average, so I'm going to go with the C+ with it. It's just, it's an okay porter, but it needs more of that pumpkin spice character to it. It's very lacking in the beer. The more I drink it, the more I kind of lose the spice notes to it, unfortunately. And the alcohol is coming more forward and kind of being more prominent in the beer the more I drink it. So it's a nice attempt with the beer, not the best example of, you know, a darker beer with the pumpkin characteristics. This is one of those beers where the more I drink it, the more kind of flaws I get with it. The alcohol comes out, I realize it's got a lot of carbonation, a lot of burps from it. It's a little overcarbonated for being a dark beer. But if you've never had a porter or a stout with pumpkin pie, you know, it's pumpkin spice type of characteristics, you know, give it a shot. I just don't think it's the best example of the style. Try to find the brewery's Burley Gourd or Midnight Sun's Tree, which are probably pretty hard to find. There might be some other darker pumpkin beers out there, but this one, yeah, it's just slightly above average, which is unfortunate because I had a lot of great beers from Epic, and the last collaboration they did with DC Brau I really enjoyed. This one just didn't quite do it for me. That's going to wrap it up. Until next time, please comment, subscribe. Cheers.